Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Lisa Oligas. In this edition, we get an inside look at Porchfest, an annual event that features 40-plus bands playing on porches in the North Heights Joplin neighborhood. This year, it's scheduled for October 7th from noon to 7 p.m. We'll talk with a band member, a homeowner or porch band host, and a Porchfest organizer. And that's where we begin our conversation, talking first with Justin Gill. Welcome and thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So this is kind of an annual event. How many years has Porchfest been going on in Joplin?
This is our 7th year here in Joplin.
So how did it all get started? Who had this brainchild?
So Porchfest is an event that is thrown on by the North Heights neighborhood group, and the neighborhood group was begun in 2015 with a bunch of neighbors in North Joplin who wanted to build better relationships in the community and advocate for that community. And Porchfest was kind of born as an event that we could do in the neighborhood that could draw eyes and attention and the enjoyment of our local artists and musicians and the beautiful architecture there in North Joplin.
And it kind of started as a neighborhood party, but there are other Porchfests like nationwide as well, correct?
Yeah, we have Porchfest in Kansas City, St. Louis. I don't know if we have any in Northwest Arkansas, but in larger cities, this is kind of a normal thing that some certain neighborhoods do.
Yeah, and so yours is the North Heights Porchfest.
Yes.
Okay, so there's all kinds of music represented here. It's not certainly one kind of music. So tell us a little bit about some of the varieties where people can go and maybe sample all different kinds of genres.
So the musicians here at Porchfest are local and regional musicians, and they're almost any kind of music. So there's folk bands, rock bands, worship bands, classical, instrumental. We've had some school groups come and play. So there's lots and lots of different kinds that we have.
Bluegrass. If there's something you want to hear, there's probably an option for it.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So this is called the North Heights neighborhood, but what is the North Heights neighborhood? What blocks does that encompass? So
the city has the kind of the rough boundaries of about First Street and A Street all the way up to F and Glendale, and then Main Street all the way over to Jackson. So kind of the alphabet streets that we have there in North Joplin on the west side of Main Street.
Would you say this is a growing event? Has it expanded over the years?
Absolutely. So just a few years ago, we had maybe 1,000 people that would come, but we think that last year we had almost 5,000 people come from the region to come to Porchfest, since it's a 7-hour thing. So this year we actually think it'll be even bigger.
And then have you expanded the number of bands each year? Did it start out so much smaller?
Yes. So we've had maybe a couple of dozen bands at most for most years, and then last year was our biggest year at about 30 bands, and this year we've kind of blown that out of the water as well. We're at 47 bands this year.
Oh, even more.
Yeah.
Wow. So then, is there a cost to anyone to come to this?
No, Porchfest is completely free. It is just in our neighborhood. There at Moffett and Byers and E is kind of where the blocks that we are this year. We have just open for anything, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know there are a lot of vendors who take part in this as well, and that is an opportunity because people, if they're going to be there all day, probably want to eat. So, and then there's also artists. So it's kind of a celebration of culture overall. Tell us a lot about some of the art that might be on display and for sale. Yeah,
so we have local artists that make handmade art. So we have leather workers, pottery makers, artists that do paintings, crocheters and knitters, anything that can be made at home. A lot of the people that are going to be selling things here aren't necessarily people who normally sell their creative art stuff. They're kind of hobbyists who are just enjoying Porchfest, coming out because this is our local area and they want to show their stuff off and maybe sell something if you want to find something that's unique.
Why did you get involved in this?
I got involved because I moved to the neighborhood and I love Joplin. I love the older houses. We wanted to buy a house that was older and help rebuild it in that neighborhood. We really enjoy the people that are in that area. We like the sidewalks and the ability to actually walk in our neighborhood. We have a number of friends that are there and younger families that are growing in that area. And so we decided to move there and kind of get involved. And when we found out about the neighborhood group, it just seemed like something that we as a family would really enjoy participating in, growing relationships, encouraging people to rebuild the older houses, and working hard to build a good community.
And does this ever tax the neighborhood a little bit? I mean, it is an area where some houses may need some restoration. Do you ever see people coming in, and does it help inspire people, you think?
Absolutely. So we do projects to redo sidewalks. We help people put lighting in their houses, on outside of their houses, like motion sensor lights. We have cleanup days and beautification kind of days where we can help restore yards, sidewalk areas, not just the sidewalks themselves, but just kind of the garden areas of the sidewalks. So we really encourage people to really make their houses beautiful. As we've done more things like help with Halloween trick-or-treat nights, we've encouraged contests for housing, decorations and things like that. So just for us as neighbors to enjoy as we live in the area.
So while the rent is free, you actually sell t-shirts, and that can help you with some of these improvements. Tell us about how somebody could get a t-shirt.
Yeah, so Porchfest is free, and we sell t-shirts for Porchfest. This is this year's
logo?
design. Yeah, it's actually made by somebody on the board. It's all designed for us, and then we use a local shirt maker to do that. And so we sell t-shirts there at the venue. We also accept donations. We're a nonprofit, and so we just kind of throw Porchfest in order to encourage these kind of community development in our area.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the food vendors there, because we mentioned some of the handmade works, but there's a lot of food trucks coming, right?
There are a lot of food trucks. So there's a number of food trucks that you would know from like Third Thursday, like Chiros Colima is going to be there. There's a number of others. Ghetto Tacos will be there.
Where will they be located?
They're located, I believe, on Beyer Street this year, between E and D. And then on Moffett, we're going to have all of our artists, is where we're going to kind of have those kinds of things.
So a lot of activity.
Lots of activity.
Do you have to add extra security? Do you have folks patrolling the area? Do you block off the streets from traffic so people know where they can maybe park?
Yeah, so we block off the blocks that we've requested from the city, and we have big signs out there and everything for that. The police know what's going on, and so they help us patrol a little bit. They come through. They enjoy the festival as well. We just kind of, those of us that are board members and those of us that are participants and volunteers, we kind of patrol a little bit, make sure everything's fine, ask booths and vendors how things are going and stuff like that. We've never really run into a problem.
Yeah. Is there a recommended place to park for folks who would be visiting?
That's a really good question. So the area to park in is just on the sides of the streets in that neighborhood, and so there's really no designated parking area. Yeah.
Okay, and plan to walk a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's a walking kind of stroll.
It's a walking event.
All right. Justin Gill, thank you for telling us all about it.
Awesome, thank you.
When we come back, we will talk with a member of a local band performing at Porchfest. Vagabond Grove's Caleb Miller is up next. As we go to break, here's a look at the band lineup for Porchfest.
It's been so long since you had this in your heart. You're telling me now that we'll never be apart. When I came back, everything seemed so new. I swear all your friends said they had not a clue. And now as our lives are on the verge of a change.
More than 40 bands are slated to perform throughout the day on October 7th on a variety of porches on East Street and Byers Avenue in Joplin. It's a unique opportunity for musicians to show their skills and engage the community. Joining us with the band perspective is a member of Vagabond Grove, Caleb Miller. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So this is a celebration of music, but have you performed in Porchfest like previous years?
Yes, this is my 4th year. It's the 3rd time with the band. 4th year for me personally, though.
Yeah. So what do you like about it?
It's just different. I mean, I like things that are different, and it's an atmosphere that I don't get at most events. It's also one of the few events that I do that is solely kind of based in music. I play a lot of different events that are, have music, and I'm playing here and there, and those are a lot of fun. But this is one of the few events that I do that is just, the focus is on the music, and that really brings a different kind of vibe to everything.
So are you on the porch or on the lawn when you guys do your setup?
It all depends on the house itself, depending on kind of how it's oriented and where, how big space they have. Porchfest is really good about getting us a space that fits us, but sometimes it's easier to be on the yard. It all depends. I've done a couple of porches, I've done a yard. It really depends what we decide when we get there, basically.
So are there different considerations when you're playing on a porch outside in a neighborhood? I mean, do you still have your electric guitars, or do you do just acoustics? Do you change your sets kind of?
Yeah, I would say generally I don't usually personally change our sets. I mean, we're a little bit more on the acoustic side. We're definitely a rock band, but we play a lot of folk and kind of Americana kind of stuff, so it's not super heavy. But a lot of times what is most different is on a porch. You oftentimes have a roof, which isn't always the case in terms of stages, and so the sound is different, but generally speaking, we run the same sound system. We just sometimes have to bring it down a little bit because we get a little bit, it's just loud, I guess.
Even for you, not necessarily for the audience, but
for sure,
yourself.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So does that make it a different experience? I mean, is it, do you feel more maybe engaged with the crowd? Is it a different kind of crowd than, say, if you're in a club with a stage?
Yeah, I definitely think it is. I think a lot of that is just because, like I said before, this is an event where people are coming to see the music. And a lot of times you may be playing a show where people are there to see the music, but sometimes you're playing a club or restaurant, whatever. People are there to have a meal or have some drinks, and you're there and they may be enjoying it, but it's not the same as people who have come to see music.
What does this mean for you, maybe in the terms of exposure? And, do you ever get bookings from playing Porchfest?
Yeah, so that's kind of a tricky question, because if you spend enough time around musicians, we kind of have a joke about exposure, because there's a lot of venues that think they can kind of just pay you an exposure, and it doesn't pay the bills, Right. But at the same time, this is a very different type of exposure, because again, people are there to see the music, plus you're getting in front of a ton of people. They may not be there for the entire set, but you may have 200 plus people come through, and that's super important, especially for bands that are just starting out, because not every song is for everyone, not every band is for everyone, and you've got to get in front of enough people to find your people. And so this is a super great way to get in front of a lot of people who are there to see your music. And then at the same time, you also do get some bookings from that. It's hard to tell where bookings come from unless they tell you, but I do know for sure we've at least gotten one booking through this, because we're going to be playing the Kansas City Porchfest the following week, and they found us through this group. So
you obviously like doing Porchfest if you're going to do one up there. Have you played in other Porchfests in other cities, or is this going to be the first time for you?
I haven't, yeah. So North Heights Porchfest is the first one I've ever done, and the Kansas City would be the first time I'm doing one outside of Joplin.
Do you feel like you ever have any returnees, like almost groupies, who oh, they're at Porchfest, we're going to go see them there too?
I mean, yeah, as you get, I wouldn't say groupies, but definitely people that have seen us before at various events. I mean, we're starting to get to a point where we're seeing more people come back, and especially when they remember you from a particular event, it kind of jogs their memory a little bit more, and they tend to want to come back again if they liked what they saw.
Yeah. So you said you didn't necessarily adjust your lineup, but give us an idea of some of the songs you might play at Porchfest. Are they usually originals, covers? Do you do a mix?
Yeah, so it all depends. I'm actually playing in two bands, to be fair.
Really?
I play in my band Vagabond Grove and the Drifting Heads, which is primarily all original stuff. We usually throw in a cover or two here and there. But I also play in the Zane Grimes band, which will be playing the same spot this year, about an hour apart from each other. And we do mostly covers in that sense. So it really depends on what the band is doing and what they normally play. We're an original band. Zane likes to play covers, so that's kind of what we do.
Yeah, and where will you be playing this year?
We are at 636 Sargent, which is, I know it's on the corner. That's all I can remember. I think it's the corner of that and maybe F Street. But
so as a band, though, you play in one spot. You don't have to move. It's the audience that moves.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So we'll be in the same spot for our hour, and then we'll have a little setup time. Zane will set up and we'll play there as well, and the audience can move around and come check out whichever bands are playing as they see fit.
Yeah. And so then when your band plays, for most of the bands, it's a one-time concert, or do you play that concert more than once?
We just play the one time at Porchfest, generally speaking, but of course we're playing usually the same stuff that you're going to hear at most of our events as well. But yeah, we'll play the one time. But there is, I think, a ton of bands, almost 50, so there's plenty of stuff to see.
You bet. So what would you say to people as they consider going to Porchfest? What advice would you give them, or why would you encourage them to come?
I mean, I would encourage people to come just because of, I think, the atmosphere, number one, and number two, this is a really cool way to find, your music, something that you may not be popular enough to have heard it yet. Maybe not be on the radio, may not be. But it's good. Like, that's the thing that sometimes people miss about local bands, is just because they don't have popularity, that it doesn't mean they're not any good. And there's a ton of bands that are just starting off. There's a ton of bands that have been playing for years. And this is just a really cool way to find your music, find an act that you might want to come see and hang out with. Because they've got some of everything pretty much.
Well, because radio is often a playlist of very popular stuff. It can be hard to break into radio.
Absolutely, yeah. Plus on that fact, the radio does sort of have certain things that they like to play and things they know are going to work. But that's also not how art works. We try things, we do interesting stuff, and there's so many people that don't like what's on the radio. They want to hear something a little bit, maybe they might call it weird. People would call it weird. I just call it different. I call it unique. But this is a cool way to find that, because there's so many different acts that are playing this year.
Well, thanks, Kelly. Do you mind playing us To Break?
Yeah, I could do that, absolutely.
He brought his guitar.
Yeah, here's a song that I believe we'll be doing as a full band. It's on my most recent record that I put out. If you want to guys check it out, it's on all of the streaming services. This is Big Hot Sun.
Okay.
A big hot sun beating down on the people on the ground. Won't you spare me a little water? Won't you spare me something to drink? You say you've heard this one before. You saw me knocking on your neighbor's door. You say what for? Just a big hot sun, just a big hot sun. Big head wind blowing by through the forest into the sky. Won't you spare me a little kindness? Won't you spare me some place to be? You say you've heard this one before. You saw me knocking on your neighbor's door. You say what for? Just a big head of wind, just a big head.
When we come back, we are joined by a homeowner sharing their porch for bands, and Justin Gill returns too. Here's a look at some of the food trucks and arts vendors appearing at Porchfest. Thank you, Caleb.
Blowing by through the forest to the sky. Won't you spare me a little rest here? Won't you spare me some place to be? 1, 2, 3. You say you've heard this song before. You saw me knocking on your neighbor's door. You say, what for? Just a big head wind, just a big head wind. Oh, oh,
back to Newsmakers, where we are talking about North Heights Porchfest. October 7th from noon to 7, more than 40 bands will perform on East Street and Byers Avenue in Joplin on porches and lawns. Joining our conversation now is Steve Brunson, a North Heights homeowner who's a porch host this year, and returning is Justin Gill, one of the Porchfest organizers. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us.
So Steve, is this the first time you've hosted or have you done it before?
I've done it. This would be my 4th year of being involved with the Porchfest and
Yeah.
offering my porch.
So why do you do this? Why did you want to be involved?
It's good for the neighborhood, and if you have kids and you want to go out and do something, it doesn't cost a penny. You can go out and spend all day listening to bands, and you don't have to spend a penny. They got food trucks if you want something to eat, and there's some crafts if you want to buy something. But if you just want to take your kids out and have a good time, it's a blast.
Are you a music person yourself? Do you have a history with music?
No, my kids do, but I've never picked up an instrument.
Yeah. So what do your kids do though?
Well, my youngest son, he played in the college bands and stuff, and he played a French horn and then for church and church events.
So have you always liked the bands that played, or did you get to select the style of music, or is it always a hit and miss as to what style it's going to be?
They've always just assigned a band, and I've always been surprised. I love them. And it'd be the first time I've heard them, and it's like, oh, I got the best band this year. Every year I get the best band.
That's awesome. So Justin, I know we mentioned 40 bands, but are there 40 porches, or do we have a rotation kind of thing?
So it's definitely a rotation. There are some porches that are volunteering to host 3 different bands throughout the day, and a lot of the porches that we have volunteering are doing 2 bands.
Yeah. So how many will be at your house, Steve?
I have 2 bands this year.
Yeah. And do you know what they're going to play? What kind of music?
No, I haven't looked them up yet. I'll get on YouTube and kind of look them up and see. I'll try to do all the bands so I can go see who I want to go watch and stuff.
Yeah.
But
So sometimes you don't even stay at home. You'll go visit other houses too?
yeah, I'll walk through the neighborhood. I try to enjoy it. Yeah.
That's awesome. So is there a theme to your house, or do you kind of try to, decorate a certain way, or is it just kind of welcoming people? Does it force you to kind of spruce up a little bit?
Well, yeah. I make sure my grass is cut and the leaves are picked up. But no, there's no theme. We just, I lean towards blues and rock, and so far they've always the band. That's the band I usually end up getting.
Yeah.
My neighbors they're gonna have a blues band after mine, and it's just gonna be a good time.
And I would say it's no small thing to be a host of a band at Porchfest. We really encourage our hosts to be hospitable, provide water, snacks, interact with the band members. They provide the electricity for the bands and stuff like that. So there's a small cost to doing that, both time and energy and everything. And so we're really grateful for all of our volunteers.
How many porches are actually used?
I believe this year it's like 25, 27-ish different bands or different porches throughout the neighborhood.
How early do you have to start to coordinate something like this, Justin?
So this year we really began preparations and coordination in April. So we began signing up, reaching out to neighbors, especially those neighbors that have volunteered their porches before. We began to reach out in April. And then we began to sign up bands and porches all the way to August 1st.
Excellent. So, Steve, what do you see as the big benefit for the community, for the neighborhood?
Well, what I've noticed, we've lived in the neighborhood about 5 or 6 years, and you see the neighborhood starting to come back to life, and younger families are moving in and they're fixing their houses up, and it was starting to get run down for a while, and everybody was depressed, and now you're getting out and you know who your neighbors are, and you see them out there on the streets, and it's kind of changed the whole vibe of the neighborhood.
That's awesome.
I love it.
That's great. So let's talk, there's a map that can help people find the bands and where the houses are. How do they access that? Tell us what's shown on the map.
So the easiest way to get to the map is to go on Facebook and look up North Heights Porchfest, and it is pinned to the very top of our page at North Heights Porchfest. And there's two maps. There's a band map that tells you all of the different names of bands and the addresses that they're going to be at and what time those bands are going to play. And then there's another map that tells you all of the vendors, all the food trucks, all the artists, all the craft makers on Moffett and Byers.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So You said thousands have come in the past.
Yes.
Do you have sort of response to your Facebook page that tells you, oh, hey, this is going to be a big year?
Yeah, we actually, we have right now just 2,500 people like North Heights Porchfest, just our Facebook page, which is a really big number, and we have a lot of interaction with that. We also have a lot of great interaction with local media and the city, and help promote the event.
So the event's supposed to run noon to 7. When does the actual music, is there a certain period that the music starts, or does it start straight up at noon?
We're starting the music at noon this year, so we have 7 full hours of bands playing. So.
Wow, that sounds like fun. So do you ever have to worry about how loud anybody is when it comes to at your house? Or, I mean, is it kind of an expectation that it's going to be a hopping kind of day in the neighborhood?
Yeah, I think the neighborhood just knows, you know, you're going to hear music all day long. And but it stops it when it's supposed to stop, and then the neighborhood settles down.
What do you guys see, and what kind of reactions do you get from the people in the audiences, in the crowds? What kind of feedback do you get when the people are there listening?
Oh, last year we had people dancing in the street and bouncing beach balls up in the air and just having a good time. It's just a nice, easy day.
Yeah, it's a really good time. We have lots of college kids that come from Southern and Ozark and now KCU that come out because it's one of the things that actually happens here in Joplin. Like, it's a local music and arts festival in their town that they're going to college in. We have lots of people that have said things like, we've never done anything in this neighborhood before. We're really excited that there's something happening in our neighborhood downtown again. So it's really nice to hear those kinds of comments. So.
Do you think we're having a shift and a change in culture of people wanting to do things that are outdoors or more community based, that are kind of, festival type activities?
I think so. I think so, especially after COVID. My family and I, we go to festivals almost every weekend here in the fall. We travel around here in the Ozarks, and I think everybody has seen a pretty significant increase in participation in outdoor festivals and enjoyment of just being together and enjoying what we have here in our region.
All right. So tell us all the places people can find information. It's best place is the Facebook page?
The best place is the Facebook page, North Heights Porchfest on Facebook.
All right. Well, Steve, thank you for lending your porch and your lawn and hosting, and thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Well, thank you.
And that wraps up this edition of Newsmakers, as we brought focus to North Heights Porchfest happening October 7th from noon to 7 on East Street and Byers Avenue. Check it out to experience live music. Thanks to our guests for sharing all this information, and thank you for watching Newsmakers.